He's got to have it right now. And they take a downfield shot. And the catch is made. It's Ryan Williams, still spinning free. Touchdown Alabama, they answer in one play.
For a long time, American football has been a leader in the U.S. sports broadcasting market, with the NFL being the most watched league in the country and the largest league by revenue in the entire world. When you consider that the NFL plays nearly 300 games a year, plus almost another 1,000 for Division I college football alone, it's easy to see why football has become such a significant piece of the sports television market. Today we will be breaking down the essential camera positions used in these broadcasts, their standard numbering, and what their operators are assigned to shoot. As I say in all of these videos, please keep in mind that every broadcast is different. Every director has their own preferences on numbering and camera assignments, and relatively larger and smaller broadcasts will make use of cameras differently, but I'm going to do the best that I can to sum up my experiences in the 10 years that I've been shooting football as a professional camera operator. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Cameras 1, 2, and 3, the up cameras. In most sports, there is a single game camera, assigned to cover all the important game action from a wide angle, typically high above the field of play. In sports like basketball, soccer, and hockey, this is the camera that the viewer will be seeing most throughout the vast majority of the broadcast. Since the pace of play of football allows for directors to cut around to different cameras between nearly every snap, multiple game camera locations are used in order to get that camera as head-on with the line of scrimmage as possible, depending on where it is on the field. These cameras are typically numbered 1, 2, and 3, and are located on a centralized camera deck or decks at the left 25-yard line, 50-yard line, and right 25-yard line, respectively. The assignments for these cameras can be a little bit tricky to follow, but stick with me here. To make this easier, we're going to divide the field into 3 different sections using the 30-yard lines, and we're going to call these zones A, B, and C. Each camera is tasked with traditional game camera responsibilities when the line of scrimmage is within that camera's zone. When initially framing for game action, the camera operator should include all 11 players on the offense, with the deepest players in the backfield essentially backing up to the edge of the frame. Most of the defense will be in this shot as well, but deep safeties and corners do not necessarily need to be shown every single play. Once the offense has been established, and if the receivers are spread really wide on the line of scrimmage, it can be acceptable to push past either the top or bottom grouping of receivers, as long as you do so in its entirety before the snap. Once the play begins, the operator will slowly push towards the pocket, following a run or pass as the play develops. When the play is over, the operator will push to the hero of the play, typically never getting tighter than head to toe in order to allow the director to make a tighter cut to a different camera. Once the director cuts away from the game cam, the operator will widen out back to their traditional game framing to allow the director to see the offense get set up while they cut around using different cameras between plays. When the line of scrimmage is not in the zone for any given up camera, they will have one of another pair of responsibilities. Typically, these 2 other cameras will either be responsible for shooting ISO shots of a specific receiver or group of receivers, or what we call pit framing. And pit framing is typically a shot of the offensive and defensive lines, as well as all of the offensive players in the backfield. This is essentially a tighter version of the game camera that will also follow passes and runs as the play develops. ISO, or isolation framing, is exactly what it sounds like. The operator simply follows a receiver or receiver grouping, pushing towards the player that's actually going to catch the ball if the ball is thrown to a receiver within that group. To explain how each of the 2 non-game camera up cams know which of the other pair of assignments they're responsible for, let's go back to our zones. Typically, the pit camera will be whichever camera is behind the play and closest to the game camera, and the ISO camera will be whichever camera is left. For example, when the ball is going camera left to camera right and is currently in zone C, camera 3 will obviously be our game camera, 2 will be pit, and 1 will be the ISO. If the ball is here in zone B and moving right to left, 2 will be game, 3 will be pit, and 1 will be the ISO. If, however, the ball is backed up to an end zone, let's say here in zone A, then 1 will be our game cam, 2 will be our pit since it's still closest to the line of scrimmage, though not behind, and 3 will be the ISO. Before we move on from the up cams, let's talk about some other responsibilities that these operators have. Between plays, the non-game cameras should be helping the director with shots of the far side coach and bench area, excited fans in the crowd, or hero shots of players that just made key plays or that the announcers are otherwise discussing. If a flag happens prior to the snap, the game camera will typically be responsible for making a slow, gentle push to the white hat referee in order to get a shot of him making the call. If, however, a flag happens during or after a play, camera 2 is usually responsible for quickly getting to the white hat ref and getting a tight shot for the director to cut to. Camera 2 is also usually responsible for game framing on all punts and kickoffs, while cameras 1 and 3 will shoot either the kicker or punter or returner, depending on who is on the opposite side of the field in order to get the most head-on shot possible. Finally, the last note that we'll cover is that after a touchdown, whichever camera was the game camera for that play will be responsible for sticking with the hero, usually until the next drive. That way the director always has a chance to cut to a reaction shot of that player as they celebrate on the bench with their teammates. Camera 4, high end zone. Next, let's cover the end zone cameras, starting with high end zone. This camera is positioned behind either the left or right end zone, usually on a roof, concourse, or camera platform, depending on the build of the stadium. Camera 4 will be positioned as centered on the uprights as possible, as this camera serves as the game or play-by-play angle for all field goal attempts. On most smaller broadcasts where only one high end zone camera is used, this will include field goals on both the near and far side of the field. During gameplay, this operator will be responsible for shooting medium game action, typically starting their framing to include all of the backfield and the entire offensive and defensive line for later use in replays. As a play begins, the operator will follow the ball wherever it goes, but will typically not get any tighter than head to toe on the ball carrier, because this is a great replay angle to determine whether or not a player went out of bounds along the sideline. This medium framing also works great for telestrator replays, as it offers a great view to see how a play develops. Between plays, camera 4 will get shots of whichever team is facing them at that point in time, as well as crowd shots, hero shots, shots of the near side bench and coaches, because they have a much more direct look at that near side than any of the up cams. Camera 6, low end zone. So we're going to skip to camera 6 here because that's our low end zone, which will be placed on the opposite side of the field from camera 4. This camera will be placed on a camera platform or in a camera well at field level and will typically be aligned with the near side hash marks. During gameplay, the camera 6 operator will shoot tight game action, giving the producer a variety of great replay angles for all different types of plays. Between plays, just like camera 4, camera 6 will be responsible for shooting shots of whichever team is facing them at that time, as well as shots of the near side bench and coach. This operator is typically given the most creative freedom of all of the hard cams in a football broadcast, which makes it a ton of fun to run. Camera 5, cart cam. Now let's move on to my personal favorite camera, the cart cam. This camera is built on a pedestal on a specially designed cart, which is independently driven by a specialized cart driver. It will typically be located on the near side of the field behind the bench area and will move left to right along the length of the field depending on where the ball is at any given time. Typically, directors will have the cart camera line up on the first down marker for each play. This offers a great replay angle for official reviews to determine whether or not a player successfully got a first down. When the ball is in the red zone, however, the cart will typically line up on the goal line, much for the same reason, to offer replay angles of close plays on the goal line. Similarly, if a ball is backed up to a goal line, typically within 1 to 3 yards, the cart cam will line up on that goal line, offering a reviewable angle of potential safeties. Before we get into the weeds on the assignments of this camera, it's really important to note how crucial communication is between the cart cam operator and the cart's driver. The operator will typically be set up with a separate line of communication in order to be able to talk to the kart's driver directly. The operator has to be both clear and decisive, directing the driver on when to move and where exactly to be positioned. Since the kart is capable of moving at relatively quick speeds, it'll usually be accompanied by several security guards and utilities, ensuring the safety of the driver, the operator, and everyone else on the sideline. The primary responsibility for Camera 5 is the quarterback. The operator should know where the current offense's quarterback is at all times, getting shots of them before, during, and after plays. As a play is about to begin, the operator will frame everyone in the backfield as well as much of the offensive line. A good rule of thumb is to keep the quarterback or the deepest running back to one side of your frame and the closest defensive lineman to the other. Unlike most of the other cameras, this camera will not actually follow the ball on most pass plays, but instead will do what we call quarterback protect, which is essentially keeping a shot of the quarterback in case they get hit after the throw. This will also allow for the director to make a quick cut to a reaction shot of the quarterback after a big play, an incompletion, or an interception. There are, however, a couple of exceptions to this rule. When there is a screen or a short pass in the direction of the kart camera, the operator is typically given the freedom to follow the ball on that play so long as the quarterback isn't in imminent danger of getting hit. Also, if the ball is in the red zone and the kart is lined up on the goal line, the operator will typically be allowed to follow any pass. On running plays, however, the kart cam is free to follow the ball at all times. On field goals, directors will usually have the kart cam get tight shots of the hold or the kicker to be used in replays or for reaction shots. Though the kart camera can certainly help out with other hero shots and shots of the crowd, their primary responsibility is always going to be the quarterback, so it's rare that too many extra assignments will be given. Camera 7, Handheld. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about the handheld camera. Prior to this point in the video, all the cameras that we've covered have been what we call hard cams, which are mounted on tripods or camera pedestals. The final camera that we're going to cover in depth, however, is a handheld or shoulder-mounted camera. Much like the kart camera, the handheld will be positioned on the near side of the field and will move from left to right depending on where the line of scrimmage is located. I've most often seen directors prefer that the handheld line up 15 yards past the line of scrimmage or as close to that as possible. Since in most levels of football, the camera operator is not allowed to actually be in front of the bench area, they will have to jump further down the field in front of the play in order to avoid this restricted zone. When the ball is in the red zone, the handheld will typically line up with the back pylon, offering a great look for close plays in that corner that might be close to the sideline or the back of the end zone. As far as framing is concerned, the handheld will typically shoot play-by-play game action much like the low end zone or kart camera and will pretty much follow the ball on all plays. Given its flexibility in terms of location on the field, Camera 7 will also be responsible for getting a lot of unique shots as well. For example, the operator may be responsible for shooting team runouts at the beginning of the game, interviews with coaches and players, shots of the cheerleaders on the sideline, and close-up shots of fans in the crowd. Though it can be pretty physically draining to carry a 10-plus pound camera around on your shoulder for an entire football game, this camera can be really fun to run and offers a ton of creative freedom. Other cameras. As I said at the beginning of this video, the number of cameras on any given broadcast can vary heavily depending on the size of the show. Most shows at all levels will have a couple of other very important cameras that we haven't covered yet. First is the booth camera, which is typically a stationary shot of the talent or announcers in the broadcast booth. This shot is usually framed against a backdrop or the venue itself and will be used for the show's open and any other on-camera segments. Most broadcasts will also include some sort of beauty camera, which is usually just a wide shot of the entire venue that will mostly be used as a background for large graphics. On larger broadcasts, a variety of additional cameras will be added as well. This could include additional high and low end zone cameras, which will be placed on the opposite sides of the field of the ones that we already covered, or it could be an additional handheld, which will likely be put on the far side of the field. Very large shows will also include a lot of specialized cameras. This could include a jib, which are often used for a lot of unique reset or crowd shots. You may also see pylon cameras, which are small cameras mounted inside of specialized pylons that sit on the goal line. It can also include Sky or Spider cams, which are cable-mounted cameras that can offer the viewer a very unique vantage point. Football is one of the most entertaining and dynamic games that you can watch on TV, and there's so much that goes into making these broadcasts happen. Hopefully this video gives you a bit of insight into a small piece of the sports production world. If you enjoyed this video, please drop us a like and don't forget to subscribe for more production-related content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.